consistency is key, and how one poor round and your position in the overalls goes up in smoke, doesn't it, really? I did actually catch up with their team manager, Reece Howe, earlier, who said that the reason they're doing those tactics really is they're playing to their strengths and maximising the impact of their two biggest riders. That's Ollie and Lionel Vujacic, who you will undoubtedly see up there in the mix for the intermediate sprints as well. And it's worth saying as well, there are more intermediate sprint points on offer this week than there were last week as well. Now, another team that's been animating the racing over the last 2 weeks is World Elite Zwifters. So they've had a 7th and a 5th place, haven't they? And their Argentinian rider, Leandro Messinho, was off the front attacking in the closing stages of last week. You won't recognise him here because his avatar in Zwift has a massive bouffant, doesn't it? But they've got a really diverse team in terms of geography. Hugely diverse, with across three different continents, South America, over in Oceania, North America as well. So for that team to be racing different continents, different countries, different time zones, to be coming together and performing so well, I think that's the beauty of esports on Zwift, isn't it? That where else could you have riders on all corners, shall we say, of the globe, and still be able to perform so well? And I want to say, I think Leonardo needs to get a wig to racing, doesn't he? just to mimic his avatar. That's right, yeah. Now, you almost said all continents, and I was going to correct you because I don't think there is anyone racing in Antarctica in the ZRL at the minute. But we did hear that there was a guy from the British Antarctic Survey that was attempting an Everesting on Zwift whilst in Antarctica, which I thought was super cool. I don't know how he's got on, actually. He's gone a bit silent, but anyway, we'll find that out. Now, Hannah, who are you going to put your money on, individual and team, for this men's race? It's a really tough one tonight with the amount of elevation coming. We've got the relatively short laps. It's going to be fast. We've seen the intermediate sprints have really split things up. It's not necessarily always been the climb that's done the damage. But for me, I think as a rider who can recover very, very well, who is able to go for the intermediate sprints while still having something, well, a lot left for the finish, Ollie Jones for the individual for me tonight. And I just think Next Esports, powered by Insured, the way they're going, the team that they have, the lineup, they have so many options and it's just working for them. And if they keep and they stick to their own strategy, I think they'll come out on top again tonight. Yeah, right. Well, you can see the riders behind us warming up there. I'm going to go for James Barnes, actually, as the individual, and next for the team. But we don't have to wait long. Let's head over to Matt and Dave in the commentary booth. We'll join them now.
Thank you very much indeed, Si. Thank you very much indeed, Hannah. Cannot wait for this race to get underway. It should be an absolute classic, and I did say that before to Simon. This should be effervescent, it should be fizzy, it should be action-packed, and of course, for the first time this season, we are in Watopia. We are on the Two Bridges Loop. I rode it earlier on for the first time ever, and it is an interesting little circuit with a bit of everything. I do think it's going to be an interesting race, but fast one. Week 3, that's the name of the course. Two Bridges Loop, 6 laps. Total distance, as you can see there, 42.85 kilometres, almost double the elevation of last week at 484 metres. We have the classic power-ups, Aero, Draft and Weather. More about those a little bit later on because we're in the pen. We've got about 10 seconds to go, and I think that's a pretty decent time actually to introduce my co-commentator, as ever. It is the legend that is Mr. Dave Town. Dave, great to have you along. First time in Watopia. We're about to go. I think we're 3 seconds underway. We are racing, but Dave, this is going to be a very, very interesting circuit indeed. Interesting too. I think it's going to be very, very difficult for us to predict, but it's going to be action-packed. That is for sure.
Yeah, I would agree, Matt. The one thing that's for sure will be that best sprinter left. I don't know that the group coming to the finish line will be larger than 20 riders, to tell you the truth. Now, we're going to be doing 6 laps out here today, and that actually begins the first lap. There's a little bit of a run in there, 7.3 kilometers per, and it's going to be an absolute Donnybrook from the get-go. We've talked a lot about the Next team and the Canyon team and how they try to dissect these races differently. At the end of the day, it's how many points your team is able to put together. let's talk about how significant these bonus sprints are going to be. They come up 6 different times, so not only are you picking up a power-up, but hopefully your team will be able to capture some points here. And the first sprint comes up very, very quickly here today.
It does. It's called the Two Bridges Loop, and the first of these sprints comes up in around 2 or 3 kilometres time. But we've got this very difficult section coming up. This is one of the numerous parts on this circuit where we've got to climb. It's just levelling out now. That normally is the finish in the other direction, so many of you who've been ridden on Zwift on multiple occasions will recognise this circuit, but perhaps not in the opposite direction. It's not particularly popular the other way. We're just entering now into the S's as well. This is essentially a mini roller coaster, very, very difficult to follow the wheel so much on this section, because Dave, it's one of the hardest parts in all of Zwift, I think, all the different worlds in Zwift, to get the pacing right, because it ebbs and flows for about 1.5 kilometres. It doesn't look technical, but it really, really is.
They talk about Matt Fortune favoring the brave, and man, in the S's, it's more true than ever. This sector of the course in the last 2 laps is going to be decisive. If you see a move slipping away, it could very well happen right here. And again, now with the sprint coming up very, very quickly, it really log it at about 2.7K in, and I think they're already attacking out of this group. It's old school fury out here today. What a phenomenal course this is to race on, as we're going to be looking for some of the big names, the closers, who's going to be left today, because these moments are going to make things tough. Expect to see this group whittled down over these first couple of laps. Matt taking a look, though, it looks like it's going to be a pretty classic sprint the first time. We've got one World Elite Zwifter rider off the front, but they brought him back into the fold. Here's we hit the reset button with about 500 meters until it's a first throwdown out here today on the Two Bridges Loop.
Yeah, they drop over the top of this, carrying, it's interesting, they carry a lot of pace into both sections on this course where you'll get your power-ups. The first one, as you can see, just over the water on the left-hand side. They are approaching the bridge. This is the JWB Bridge Sprint, the first opportunity, only 2.8 kilometres into this circuit to get points. Remember, as Dave said at the top of the show, it is all about the accumulation of points. And we've got Toshiaki Megawa, who's just gone clear. The Japanese rider for Kirchmair Cycling is going to be overhauled on the line, though, by Polly. And Kirchmair is also there in the mix, very close to brush with the line. Get confirmation of that. It didn't look like it was Kirchmair who took that one. Indeed, it was Daniel. Sorry, Daniel came very, very late indeed. Ollie Jones in second. The Cote Jega, which the Honda and the team of the final team on the end there. That's 8 spots. And for the first time, you've seen how many points are on offer. So lots and lots of points. A maximum of 60 points if you were to win these sprints out on the road. They're straight into the Italian villas on a little bit of pave here, and very, very active early on. A few little ride-ons going. Remember, if you're watching this in the comfort of your home, but you do have your mobile phone nearby, please use your Zwift companion app just to fire up a little bit of ride-on action for these riders. Let's have a little look at the first sprint of the day, Dave. A little bit of an action replay coming up very, very shortly. They hit this so quick, Dave.
Yeah, the teams can't afford to not contest these early bonus sprints out here. And that is going to be Daniel, the Swedish Zwifter rider. So it's an interesting mix of teams out there as well. As you start to look for that green jersey of the next team, you can see them assembling up near the front. A rider to watch today, and we haven't talked much about the BZR team, the all-Belgian team, but Matthias de Roos. I have a feeling he's going to find his way into the top 5, if not better, in this field. We start looking around at the riders that have got that wicked speed closing out the deal. There's Matteo Cigala, the Italian who lives in Ireland now, moving up to the front. Expect this race to be sub 50 minutes out here today as well. The fastest lap that we've seen by any of our riders in this field, Joachim Leeson, who's a big talent, was able to get around in 8 minutes and 30 seconds. He was making 325 watts when he did that. But remembering that you've got the entire peloton of riders with that level of ability, they are going to be flat out flying today. Even with 484 meters of climbing, the speed should be, very, very close to 50 kilometers per hour.
Well, there we go, David. It is going to be quick, that's for sure. Thanks for those stats. Crossing the 360 degree or 360 bridge, because you can see everything for a pretty long time if you look backwards to the west and to the east, north and south. But just up ahead, you can see the giant 2 cyclists there. Those big monuments, that is where they're heading. This is the only significant climb on the circuit. This is a very, very rolling up and down circuit. I think the best description is a classic style, super punchy, but this is the hardest climb on the circuit. It starts off at 2%. Look at the top right-hand side of your screen. That is where you'll see the elevation, and already the shape of this group starting to change. This one ratchets up ever so gradually until we hit that first hairpin on the right-hand side. Then the road really kicks up to 8, maxing out at 10%. It's going to be around a 45-50 second effort and some big numbers, as you would expect already. Paul Odelin on the front for World of Elite Zwifters. 6.8 watts a kilo. Duffy Jr. also there as well, and lots of numbers in the red, as you'd expect. This is where we're coming to the steepest section, 10%. It briefly flattens, and this is where we then do this left-hand turn before we drop down into the finish again. So already, Dave, we've nearly completed the first lap. 5.5K's done. A real illustration of how quickly these laps are going to tick by, and the peloton already stretched out significantly.
The Danish rider, the police officer, former police officer, Michael Knudsen there, who was on the podium at the World Championships last December, really lifting the pace right now. Only the strong are going to survive after this huge effort. Look at the group now. From tip to tail, it is strung out. There's going to be multiple splits happening. It is, here we go. It is on like Donkey Kong as Eddie Uhl, the South African, now moving to the front. These are some of the big names that we're looking for here in the ZRL, and they're going to make this now. We've talked about the super tuck. You need to be going over 58 kilometers per hour. The gradient needs to be 3% or greater as far as the descent, and then you need to stop making power. You got to be under 11 watts. And it looks like right now we're already seeing some riders getting tailed off the back of this group, Matt.
We certainly are. I thought it would split or at least stretch out a little bit. I was just checking the stats on the length of that bunch, Dave. It was around spread over 10 seconds over the top of that climb. As you can see, the shape has changed yet again as we look at the acquisition of points. Total team of Swedish Zwifters with 10, Toyota with 8, Canyon also with 8 points, and we have Callas, Kirchmair, Restart and Beast Mode. Powered by Rose, just rolling through in that black and orange kit. Now the finishing line, they're going to be carrying a lot of pace. As we saw, Dave eloquently described the details of the super tuck. Now that is important, but not only when to get into a super tuck, but because this finish comes so close to the bottom of the descent, it's when to lay on the power. And as you can see, 100 meters to go now. That in game, when you're riding in game, the finishing line doesn't come into view until around 160, 150 meters to go. So these riders are going to have to know this course like the back of their hand, and also understand the best way to carry that momentum out of the super tuck and hopefully have one of the numerous power-ups we have available, Dave. So we've got one lap down. That went very, very quickly indeed. 5 laps to go. The riders have 2 opportunities on this circuit to gain power-ups. That's through the sprint arch, which comes around halfway around the circuit, and they just passed through the finishing arch there. That's the other opportunity, but Dave's a reminder of the Aero, draft and feather power up before things start to ramp up for us.
Yeah, well, a great time to do that because they are absolutely going to come into play out here today, Matt. When you see that helmet power up, that's Aero. We're talking about your CDA, your coefficient of drag of frontal area, and for 15 seconds, you'll see that reduced. The feather, well, that's all about weight, 10% taken off of your body weight for 15 seconds. You can see how that would make a huge impact on the feature climb of the course out here. And then when you see that van, that's all about drafting, 50% increase in the draft that you're feeling, and it extends for 30 seconds out there. So those are the big 3. That's the trifecta of power-ups that we have, and the riders will be very, very familiar with them. Unlike last week's Anvil, which wreaked havoc, Matt. It was bananas out there with, but let's go back to the action here.
Sorry, Dave. No, it was fun with the anvil, but I tell you what, this is a man that can smash an anvil. This is Leonard Tugels. He's an absolute powerhouse, one of the most aggressive riders last week, so strong. He's an exceptional performer out on the road, has had a really solid season riding some of the classics and the semi-classics in Belgium, and will really love this course because it is reminiscent, as best it can be, of the roads in West Flanders, up and down, short, steep, punchy climbs. He put out last week, he just finished inside the top 20, Dave, but he was the joint highest power to weight ratio last week, 5 watts a kilo average for nearly an hour in France. And he's got that kind of ability to really try and split things up here, that style that we're so used to, out of the saddle, trying to smooth out these awful, awful roller coaster sections, and he's opened up a good gap. 2.5 seconds on Jan Rodzik and Davis, and 5 seconds, Dave, on the group behind. And this course really does lend itself to aggressive racing.
Well, certainly one of the most dangerous riders in the ZRL is the Belgian, and I mentioned his teammate Matthias de Roos earlier. They make for a really strong squad. I mean, they're sitting in 4th with a 14th and an 18th as far as looking back on their placing so far in the earlier 2 rounds. Now, Leonard Tugel should hold on to pick up 10 points at this bonus. It comes up at around 10K, a little bit less than that, and he's doing significant damage out here now. As Jaden Yeager, the rider out of the United States, sitting back there, well, you can see that everyone is over 5 seconds back right now. So this is a very dangerous move from Leonard Tugels, the Belgian, on BZR.
He's absolutely flying. Great picture-in-picture there. No top, out of the saddle, no hat either. He's going to take the points on this sprint, so the BZR rider is going to take maximum points. He gets 10 points across the line here. And what we do know is that he can keep this effort going. He's got those points. Now, is he going to ease up? He has eased up, actually. He's been caught by the group who've gone straight by him. But this was the tactic he employed last week, David. He took both of the King of the Mountains. There is confirmation. Turtles takes maximum points there. Then we have Worm and Niels Buyasan, the first time he has emerged to take points today with Canyon, Thiam and Voits, Leeson and Takado Ikeda of the team of Team Zwift as well, just at the back there. But good ride by Turtles. And this is a familiar characteristic of him, isn't it? Really eager to go clear, but can back it up. Team Swedish Swifters with 18, Canyon Esports with 16, and BZR with 10. This is the best we've seen, Dave, Team Swedish Swifters do on these intermediate points, especially, well, we've never really seen them do anything quite like this before. Good riding by them so far tonight.
Yeah, and it's interesting, Matt, you never really know how Canyon is going to approach the race. And I think today it's pretty clear that they're going to try to gobble up as many points as they possibly can in the early laps here, and not wanting to leave it late, knowing the threat that a lot of these sprinters will provide. Group's still pretty large all in all right now, as we're just over, well, almost 11K into what's a 42, let's call it 43 kilometers of racing out here today. As we take a look at the peloton, a bit of a reprieve right now after that last Leonard Tugels attack. That one stung the legs.
It certainly did. Well, he's the kind of rider that I can almost guarantee, Dave, without seeing their tactical play, without being in communication with him, that he will attack later, because I think this course favours his attributes as we have our first look today. Right on cue, in fact, of one of our Team Swedish Zwifters. That's John Verm, just in that group there, 230 watts. Got a nice double fan system there, Dave. That's not a fan system I've seen before. So cooling from the left, cooling from the right as well. Not perhaps as cooling as our rider that Simon mentioned earlier on in Antarctica. I think I have ridden with him a few times out on Zwift. But no, he's looking good there. 44 ride-ons for John Worm. And a reminder, please do get behind these riders. Get involved in the comments on YouTube down underneath here on GCN Racing. Subscribe in the process as well. But please let it be known your support for these riders. But it's all bunched up again. There's 70 riders, Dave, in this front group. We've already lost around 30 riders in the opening lap and a half. Just shows how hard this race is. And I think next time up this climb, we're going to shed even more.
John Worm doing a really good job positioning himself up in the peloton here, ready for what should be another surge, and it looks like World Elite Zwifter. So Paul Odlund here is one of the riders that is, I would say, has a solid trajectory right now, as Odlund has become more of a force out here. Watch out for World Elite Zwifters today as you take a look at this peloton. It's going to be Toyota Cryo moving to the front with Van D. Still kind of looking, Matt, at, for that Canyon jersey versus the next jersey. And it looks like right now, even though Canyon has picked up more bonus points, next hanging in there as well.
Yeah, we have a look at the stats of Kjetil Farup. You can just see a couple of riders who've been tailed off already. This is the lowest slopes of the climb. As a reminder, we're looking at it from a slightly different camera angle here. Look at the top right of your screen. You can tell the slope from this rather interesting camera angle. We've got beautiful views of the Zwift Alps in the distance, but this is the small little Alp that we're climbing up now. Eases off to 6%. Few riders already being tailed off. You're needing to hold around 8 or 9 watts per kilo to get over this climb in the front group. Gledner's up there, Recknauer, Lenny Turgles as well. Yip also in the mix. Gould, Misenio, all of the key riders are there. This is this new little bit of tarmac. I rode this for the very first time. Just cuts off the top draggy part of the climb in that direction. and takes us halfway down the descent, we will pick up this pace very, very quickly indeed. Another opportunity for riders, if they haven't done it, to really test out the right point, to really lay on the power after getting out of that super tuck. As they just move round to the left-hand side, you can just see the archway denoting a 1 kilometre still to go. But Davies has now gone clear. So Davies has jumped clear on the climb here. On the descent, shall I say, the Welshman from Wahoo-Lacol, he's only opened up a very, very narrow lead. And this group, Dave, has really thinned out on that climb again. 1 kilometre till we get 4 Ks to go.
Howell Davies there, aggressive for Wahoo-Lacol. Good to see them on the front, Matt. This is a good look as far as reconnoitering the finish here, as we've gone inside 1K to the finish line here on lap number 2 of 6. So this is really, you wonder how many riders will be in this group when we get down to the finale. It certainly won't be this large. As you can see, each time up that climb, riders are really paying a price. As you mentioned, making 8 watts per kilogram. You can only go to that well so many times before it's empty. And this is now really a good look at where the kick will really engage. No points at the finish line here. We are sprinting at an arch that's on the backside of the course. They will pick up another power up as they make their way through. So they'll be able to reload with either a helmet, a feather, or a van here. There is the finish truss.
Yes, indeed. And you got a good shot there of exactly, well, not quite exactly, but almost the same viewpoint of the riders as they pass through. 4 laps to go now as we look at Matthias de Roos. Fully unzipped, as you'd expect. 157 beats a minute. Just dropping down to about 3 watts a kilo, so benefiting from that draft you get midway through this group. The centre of the bunch, and also dropping towards the back, is where you'll get the most benefit from draft. And this is one of the few flattest sections on this particular circuit, where you need to try and get, or there's the opportunity, should I say, to get a little bit of a protection, a little bit of recuperation before the road starts to kick up through that rocky arch, and then we commence the S's once more. So there's about 68 riders in this front group. Now, we only lost 2 actually up that climb this time, Dave, so maybe not quite as quick, but I do think that riders are fully aware of the damage that can be caused on that climb, and they're going to be very, very mindful of that as we head towards the finish. But it will provide, I think, ample opportunity for those teams that want to rip this field apart or try and go clear.
Yeah, we just haven't gone quite all in yet on that climb. Now, here's a man that, well, winning last week and a huge threat out here today, looking incredibly comfortable all in all, is the Canadian Thomas Thrall. Thomas Thrall can make nearly 18 watts per kilo over a 15-second period. He is at the very, very high end of that wattage ladder, that's for sure. As you get a look at the next N-Short jersey, the team celebrating a world championship for one of their community team members, Ashton Lambie. And here you go. This is going to be Jasper Peredains here hitting out. Look at the numbers up in the stratosphere. BZR firing on all cylinders out here today. Very, very impressive job. They've had the New Zealander Paul Odlin up near the front. They certainly, we just saw Matthias de Roos in cam, and this sprint comes up at 17.1, so about 1.5 kilometers. And I think that Jasper Peredains is gone for the moment here, Matt. I don't think they're going to be able to bring him back. You can see Jaden Yeager there moving up to the front. Johannes Reckenauer there is a teammate, or excuse me, is on the Kirchmair team, teammate of Stefan Kirchmair, and they're looking to right the ship out here today. So this is going to be, again, the Belgian rider Jasper Peredains with a nice gap.
He certainly has got a good gap, Dave. 4.9 seconds to be exact. Jaeger is the rider in between. Jaden Jaeger, the American, but with a 5-second gap, 6 or 7 seconds to Leonard Turgles, his teammate. So BZR, clearly, from what we can see here, have gone out with a tactic of attacking on the early slopes of the S's. We know how difficult it is to actually just ride that section and deliver the power effectively and efficiently. So chasing is even more difficult, and the gap is now going out. The big question for me is, will Jasper Peredains continue this effort through? Still holding 7 watts a kilo. Jaeger in no man's land in between. Jaeger looks as if he's going to be reabsorbed. This is where the road starts to drop down, minus 5% gradient. There's only about 500 meters to go, so we can afford even to back off a little bit. Swinging left on to the bridge now. Let's have a look at that finishing gantry. We're almost like on a moto looking at him from behind here. He's on to the bridge. Always going to have to be very, very careful, but I think he's going to hold on. He's just got more. No, he's going to be, well, very close on the line. He's going to be overhauled, I think he was there, Dave.
Yeah, wow. I think he did. That's Nicky Hoog coming through. And let's see, it is for next. Wow, look at that. As they also got Zach Nair up there. Ryan Larson will come through picking up the second place points. So you can see how they're going to be distributing here through our top 8. But wow, next timing that perfectly. Matt, they do their homework. This team has gone all in with esports racing here on Zwift, and it really, really shows. They just don't miss a trick out there. So, yeah, boy, I thought Paradanes was away for sure, and I don't know that it was him easing up. Well, let's go back and take a look, actually, at that last bonus sprint.
Yeah, I don't think he actually eased up, Dave. I think he just ran out of gas. We got an interesting shot. This is, well, he was actually mopped up on the bridge itself, yeah, and didn't actually finish within the points. Only one rider from Canyon Esports in there in the mix. But as you said, Dave, quite correctly, the team that seems to be completely and utterly dialed every single race so far is Next Esports. And off the back of, we saw the images of Thomas Thrall as we look at the situation on the road. So Canyon Esports there with 19, 1 point ahead of Team Swedish Zwifters, and then 3 points clear of Next Esports. So not a bad night at all by Canyon Esports so far. Beesar Sports solid in 4th, equal there with Zwift Warriors. But I had a chat after the finish with Tom Thrall, David, and I was saying, what's the secret? How have you been so successful so far this season? How have you made this leap? And he said, well, clearly we're all fit, we're all in good shape, but we recon the courses. We just keep riding and riding these courses. We get the feel for them. We ride them as a collective as we look at Nicky Hoog, and we just get into these courses and we know the routes like the back of our hand, because the level's so high now, Dave, from a physical perspective. The next thing is to get the understanding of these courses, and clearly that's what Next Esports have done better than anybody else, you could argue.
I would not argue that, that's for sure. I got to give Canyon the same kind of credit, doing their homework, coming prepared, as they don't just let this come to chance, that's for sure. It's not just showing up on Mondays and having an exercise contest. There's so much more that goes into this. I have to say, World Elite Zwifters, that blue jersey, they are really looking to make their mark out here today, and they have a good opportunity to, with the quality of riders that they have. Now, when you look at it, Next and Canyon are virtually deadlocked right now on top of our points table. It is so critical. You just can't take a lap off out here as far as the sprints goes, and that last one certainly advantage to Next ensured. We're starting to see now another bit of a wind up here. The next sprint isn't for a little while, 24.3K in. So I think, Matt, that the way we've been racing out here, they're going to back off for just a minute before they hit it hard. And this next time up the climb, it should be ballistic here. I'm expecting this group to split.
Yeah, we've lost another few riders. We're the lead group now down to 63. So every lap we're losing a handful of riders each time, and generally it comes off the back of this climb. Stats at the top right, there's the 4%. It kicks up to 5, 6%. Then round the corner, the gradient really starts to rise, and when you're in game, you can't actually see the top. It looks like this event horizon at the top of the climb. It's only short, but it isn't sweet. For your son now at the front, this is what he does best. A couple of other riders from his team also there. Turgle's also trying to ramp things up over the climb as well. Oftedal has now gone clear as well. So a couple of teams getting in the mix, trying to rip things up. 5% just over the top. It then drops ever so slightly, and for around 100 meters, there's no descent at all. They've got this little nasty plateau, and that accentuates the damage that has been done over the top of this climb. But this is a clear attack by Knudsen as they enter, Dave, the bypass, and the descent beckons.
Michael, one of the real animators out here, his PO Auto team, they're really looking forward to the team time trial coming up in London in a couple of weeks. That's one of their specialties, as we can see now. Johannes Reckenauer is the rider, another rider with a lot of flair there as far as hairstyle goes, as we were certainly now identifying two real threats out here, and the South African on Toyota Cryo, Eddie Uhl, is leading the chase, and they're going to be reabsorbed here now. So you can see as they all drop into that super tech, the speed that the peloton is carrying. No couple riders are going to be able to hold off that group with just a handful of seconds in hand advantage there.
No, definitely not. Well, you saw where the kilometre to go flag was, just dropping down this descent. I think we've lost a few more riders as well. I did think that rider looked like he would have been the bass player for Limp Bizkit, to be perfectly honest with you, with the corn hairdo there. But anyway, pop groups from the 1990s to one side. We're entering downtown again. And this is little series of S's before they're carrying a lot of speed here. They're going to be riding at about 50, 55 k's an hour. Remember, as Dave said at the top of the show, the fastest average speed for one rider on this circuit is just over 50 k's an hour. So we do think they're going to be averaging near or about that sort of speed, even for this kind of distance. But look in front, we still can't see the finish until now. 150 meters to go as we look at Johannes Recknauer. Next time through the finishing gantry, which comes in only a few moments' time, we are at half distance. So 3 laps to go as Recknauer just cruises along, makes it very easy there, doesn't he? 263 watts, and he is the rider who's opted for that interesting hairdo. Perhaps he is a fan of nu metal. Who knows, Dave?
Well, I would have to agree, Matt, as far as there's definitely, you add Leandro Messinillo in there for another hairstyle, and you've got a complete band, that's for sure. Daniel Jemrosic moving up to the front. We start to see things settle down, but I do think the second half of this race is going to be faster than the first. As if you're a sprinter right now, you got to be pretty happy with the way things have played out. This is certainly not a climber's course, more of a power climber's course or classic type course. As we take a look, though, at another attack off the front.
It's Jemrosic who's gone clear, 7.7 watts a kilo. He's opened up on this nasty little drag, around 3%, just going through the rock tunnel that takes us right into the S's. There's the stats of the American of Restart Racing. He's no stranger to attacking. The last couple of races, he's tried a little foray off the front, and this one's looking good. But this is a tactic that we've seen every single lap this race, Dave, so far. We've seen somebody attack on this section to try and steal a march ahead of this opening sprint. And this is a picture of Jemrosic. Interesting style, sort of climbs out of the saddle on the tops, has got the double fan situation going there. He's got a nice lead. 10 seconds is the lead for the American from Restart Racing. But you can't even see, just about saw the bunch behind. So clearly, Dave, this is a tactic. This is an idea of these riders, is to try and go long onto the S's because it's so hard to chase. Although last lap they got it a bit wrong, but this is a significant gap, the biggest gap we've seen all night. 12 seconds for the American.
Yeah, you'd think that this is enough. Certainly the physics and the game playing in Zwift gives a huge advantage to that peloton chasing. We watched, though, that split. Yeah, it's stabilized at about 13 seconds here, Matt. So it looks like Daniel Jemrosic is going to make a big play here for the Restart team through the middle part of this race. Actually, we're starting to move into the business end here. And, yeah, this gap remains constant. So Daniel Jemrosic, workhorse out there right now.
He's looking good, knows how to finish well, was 10th place in the individual race last week. So no, he's got a very, very good finish on him, because that was a big bunch sprint we saw. Well, an attritional bunch sprint, shall I say, from around 35 riders in that front group, but still holding steady at 13 seconds. The rest of the bunch averaging around 4 watts a kilo, but they're almost playing this one cagey. Complete contrast to the last lap. Who is chasing behind it is Martin Martins, Audrien Vullier of Restart. I would imagine he'll be just blocking a little bit, but this is a very, very good move. This might be the biggest individual time gap, Dave, we've seen in the men's racing so far this season. I don't think anybody's got quite this far into double digits, but Jemrosic is looking very, very smooth indeed. Great to see that picture in picture. Please do give this rider some ride on. He's only got 20 compared to John Worm with 63, because he's putting on a real show here, and he's just about to jump onto the bridge to the time section, quickly over the wood and then entering through. And he will definitely take maximum points. He's still holding a lead of 11 seconds, but it's shrinking rapidly as the bunch starts sprinting behind, Dave.
Yes, so they will be sprinting for the 8 points that we've got for the second place rider across the line. And it looks like Hiroki Ueda getting up there for Zwift Warrior Cycling. Christoph Team, Ollie Jones. You mentioned Martin Mertens. We'll see how that last sprint scores. But clearly, Daniel Jemrosic, there he is, just coming back into the group. So that was a nice effort there to pick up 10 points for Restart.
He's just got to make sure that he gets into the wheels. We saw a couple of riders who'd attacked really start to struggle. There's another attack straight over the top here. It looks like one of the World Elite Zwifters has tried to go clear. So Odlin has now gone clear. We talked about them at the top of the show, a team that are really, really tenacious, happy to attack as we look at the confirmation of that intermediate sprint. So Jemrosic from Kalman, from Oya, Lorio, of Feldos, Van den Ickhout, and then Akida, and then with the final solitary point. But that solitary attack has been neutralized very, very quickly indeed. We've just exited the Italian villas, And what is the situation out on the road? Well, what a night, Dave. Team Swedish Zwifters with 24 points, usurping Canyon Esports, who led last time through. Fusion moving up into third as well. Next Esports in fourth. Restart Zwift, Warriors, Toyota Cryo, then the rest. So a good night so far for Team Swedish Zwifters.
I'm not surprised, Matt, to see the teams keeping the cards pretty close to the vest here, because it is going to be a very dynamic last couple of races. You said, like a champagne cork being pulled, it is going to just be all over the shop by the time we hit that last lap. And right now, a huge group together. The teams that have been the most impressive this far, I would have to say, Swedish Zwifters makes that list, Matt. They're having a tremendous ride out here today. And it's not only Paul Odlin for that World Elite Zwifters team, but he, so far, has done a tremendous job of keeping the pressure off of his South American teammates. They have an Argentinian and a Brazilian on that team that are going to be looking to have a breakthrough win for the World Elite Zwifters squad. So, yeah, what a dynamic middle part of this race is. But really, it's been riders going out and points hunting, looking for those 10 bonus points. And we've got another sprint coming up at, well, it's a little ways away, to tell you the truth. 31.5K in is our next bonus opportunity out here.
Yeah, we've got the best part of a lap. We're just going over 360 bridge here. John Mayfield, one of the founders of Zwift, they've named this bridge after a bridge near his home, apparently. So you will see little touches from the founding guys who set up Zwift, little touches, little personal details. When you look at the game, the details, the graphic, the kind of graphics that have been rendered here in game, and also some of the significant names as we get this aerial view of this washing machine effect. Riders making sure they're trying to keep as trying to save as much energy as they can. One rider who isn't saving energy is riding on the front wheel is Devola, who's happy to set the pace on the lower slopes of this climb, perhaps putting himself in a decent position, because as this bunches things out, the last place you want to be going over the top, because we've lost riders every single lap, is at the back. So a good idea, Dave, if you can, to give yourself just a little bit of sliding space, because the ability to save energy from drag really diminishes the slower they go on this climb.
Yeah, do a little bit of sag climbing out there if you're not feeling super confident at this point for some of our sprinters out there, although the strongmen haven't had too much trouble getting up this climb. As we take a look now at some new names moving up to the front. That's certainly not a new kit, as Wahoo Lecole and the Rose Beast Mode team. That's Jan Emmerich there, and Teppo Lorio, who became quite popular after his in-camera appearance out of Finland last week for Wahoo Lecole. Starting to see the Toyota Cryo jerseys moving up as well, and that certainly should have some alarm bells ringing. But the rider of note riding near the front right now, actually a couple of them, but certainly Brian Duffy Jr. is up there along with Johannes Reckenauer. These are two of the big names, and I get the feeling, Matt, we're just about to light a fuse out here.
We certainly are. This is Fabian de Overlap, looking good here. Just got into that super tight, as you can see. First time we've actually seen picture-in-picture what happens with a super tight. You have to freewheel, or the maximum amount of watts you can put out before it engaging is 11
Look at the
watts.
deep breaths.
It's best it says it's really using this opportunity to get a 15-second rest, and then, as you can see, really good picture-in-picture action there of the point that he is laying on the power again when the super tuck ends, getting into that slipstream and understanding the best way to deliver power. And believe you me, riders will have practiced this time and time again, either with their group or on their own, but it does change. The dynamics change so much when you are riding in a group. You can carry a lot more speed. It is very different than riding individually.
Matt, I think it's well worth noting that just because you can super tuck at the end of a run doesn't mean you should be. As you'll see, the smarter riders will start getting back on the gas. Even though they could remain in that super tuck, they realize that they're going to be moving faster if they hit it. And here we go. Speaking of hitting it, you know it's only a matter of time until the teams start trying to impact the race for the finale. PO Auto is a team I have a feeling that will be involved in these late race attacks as we get another look as we complete lap 4 of 6. So 2 to go as they head through, each lap at 7.3K each.
Yes, indeed. Now, Dave, I must admit, that was the first lap, Dave, of 4 where we haven't lost anybody from the bunch. Most laps we've lost 5 or 6, 10 people every lap. That was the only lap we've not seen anybody go, as Jambrozic is attacking again, clearly recovered after an exploits last lap. His tenure on the front is going to be a short one, though, because I think he's going to be brought back very shortly. But this has been a lot more tactical, Dave, than I thought. I thought they would attack that lap a little bit harder, but it clearly, they fear that climb, I think, and they're going to use their energies towards the back end of this race. This is like a champagne bottle that's been shaken and shaken and shaken, but nobody wants to pop the top just yet.
Well, and I tell you what, when they do, it's going to be complete pandemonium. To tell you the truth, Matt, this race has been a little more relaxed, actually, than I thought it would be. We've seen some solo attacks, but at this point now, we've got a lot of fresh riders, and they're going to be looking to do extensive damage. And when the hammer drops, it's going to be massive. Leonard Tugels back on the attack here. Tugels has been relentless out here today. This is Leonard Tugels and his BZR team really trying to take a step forward here in the ZRL. And I got to say, Matt, I think they've done a tremendous job of trying to set the table. And the question becomes, can Matheus de Roos lick his plate clean? This is Leonard Tugels that we're in camera with now, but I think they're trying to do some setup work here for de Roos in the finale.
Yeah, they're certainly not letting him go this time. We've got Nair, Recknauer, Segerbrook all chasing Vidar Mel as well, as we see a rider just lap there. So this is a little bit harder here, completely different lap than last time when Jan Brozik was allowed a little bit of headway, but Leonard Tugels is having to work very, very hard. But of all the riders in this field, the 28-year-old Belgian has got the ability to stay away. He's done it before. He did it last week in France on 2 separate occasions, dominating the King of the Mountains. No KOMs today. It is just this sprint, but he only holds a narrow lead, and we saw that on the last couple of laps how quickly the bunch can make gains on a solitary rider out in front as we enter midway through these S's. Look at this up and down, twisting and turning. It can be quite discombobulating in game with the visuals here. It throws you off a little bit. It's quite difficult to control, or to get this. You get this almost like a bit of motion sickness as well as the physical demands of this section. It's one of my favorite bits on Watopia. But look at this. He's managed to eke out, chip away, and opened up this lead of 6.2 seconds. This is the highest part of the S's. He's just getting to this now, Dave, and it's about 500 meters to the sprint.
Yeah, and this is going to be really interesting. If Leonard Tugels can't hang on, no one could. He is one of the most talented breakaway artists that we've got in this race. I look at Christoph Thiem, the German rider on beast mode, is another rider in. If those two could get together off of the front, I think the threat would be massive. That's going to be Harvar Jeldness there, rider who's a previous winner in the ZRL. Spencer Segerbrook doing some work for the Canyon team out here right now, and I see Vidar Mel is moving up, but Leonard Tugels is going to hold on and pick up 10 bonus points here in our penultimate a chance to get those 10 points out here. And Tugels does grab them. It's like a technical issue. One of the Wahoo Coal Riders as we jump back in with Tugels here.
Yeah, Tugels takes the points there from Team Swedish Swifters. Verm, Mel, there, Voets, Ofdal, Jager, and Vanden Ikhout from Cryo. But just look how quickly that Leonard Tugels is going back. This is where it really needs to make sure he gets on somebody's wheel. After that big effort, it's like a two and a half minute effort he spent out in front. But this group has split, just going through this rocky section here on to the brief section of cobbles through the Italian villas. Then the road kicks up again. Let's try and have a look at the damage that has been caused on that particular section. That was a lot harder than people think. I think a few riders have been shaken out here. We've got, 58 riders back in the group. Let's have a look at that replay. No doubt, Dave, about the winner, though.
Yeah, so he had an advantage of about 6 seconds at the max and able to hold on quite handily there. But then you see that we were in camera with the Swedish Swifters rider, John Verum, and he's having a phenomenal day. And he looked quite comfortable. And you can see we're back in with the vanguard of the race now out on the 5th lap. It's quite a mix, but a lot of green on the front there. The next insured team, it looks like it's time for the regulators to mount up right now, Matt. Here we go. Taking a look at those points, Swedish Swifters, commanding lead at this. Well, actually, there's no such thing as a commanding lead at this point with all of the points waiting at the finish line here, but 32 points for the Swedes. Canyon Esports having a great ride today. They got to be pretty happy to be sitting 2 points ahead of next insured right now with BZR Sports Solid, and those 10 points that Leonard Tugels just picked up sitting there in their 20-point tally. Fusion ECT with 18. Matt, back to you as we're getting right down to brass tacks here.
Indeed. Well, Odlin now on the front. Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen in the men's team Swedish Swifters dominate or have such a solid night in the points, but they've without winning, I don't think they've actually won one. I think they've just consistently placed riders up there, and they've ridden exceptionally well from a tactical perspective, timed all of their sprints to perfection, as we have our first look at Vidar Mel today. As you'd expect from the Movistar Esports team, very, very nice setup on his canyon there, lovely corporate backdrop, and Vidar Mel, very experienced indeed, a former Norwegian Zwift champion, happy to sit at or near the front. He knows that this time up could be critical. This is the penultimate time up this climb. It's only short, but it's very, very steep. And last time I thought they dialed it back a little bit, Dave. I'm sure riders are either, well, they've got two opportunities. They either smash it this time up, or it's all in final time up. I'm not too sure which one I'm going to call, because we'll see the shape of the bunch change very, very quickly indeed if anybody wants to go on the offensive. I've just got a feeling that maybe there's too much to gain on the descent, and it's just too hard to get away.
I would agree. I think that they're going to keep the powder dry, relatively dry. I mean, there's no easy trip up this climb.
Yeah, Vidar Mel on the front there. It's bunching across the road. Nobody really wanting to take this up. And just look at the watts per kilo. Nobody has gone into the red apart from Emmerich, 8.3. So last time and the time before that, we saw a lot more red in colour. A lot more riders tipping above the 8 watts a kilo, and that's what turns these numbers orange. But just coming over the top of the climb at its steepest section, although it's eased now, maxes out, remember, this climb at 10%. Just coming over the top, loads of ride-ons coming in from everybody at home. Please keep them coming as we continue to look at the stats of Vidar Mel. 7 watts a kilo, 530 watts. That's the sort of power you've got to hold just to stay in this lead group of 58 riders. And there's another attack over the top. Good to have you back, Dave, because Teppo Lorio has launched one off the front for Wahoo Lakal, but it's only a slender lead.
What's amazing, Matt, is the depth of this field, that so many riders are able to keep themselves out here as Teppo's going to come back into the group. And I am actually stunned to see this size group at this point in the race. I expected it to be half this size. So that just tells me that this last lap and a half is going to be absolutely ballistic out here. I realize it's all relative, but there's some very fresh legs in this group. The damage they're going to do will be immense.
Yep, coming into 1 kilometre to go until they will hear the virtual bell. There he is. He's a fan favourite, Teppo Lorio there, with that nice bushy beard, the man from Finland in that fetching kit for Wahoo Lakal, looking controlled, still having to ride at about 5 watts a kilo just to stay in this front group. Most stats that we see in the men's, depending on the course of course, is around 4.5 to 5 watts a kilo for these races, and quite often it's the riders who get up there who actually do the less watts per kilo, just holding back a little bit, saving their energy as we enter downtown again. Let's give Teppo Lorio a few more ride-ons. Let's try and get him up to 40 ride-ons for this game. I wonder if he can hear us, but he sat midway through that group, looking very, very good. But next time through will be the final lap, and they will only have 7.3 kilometers to go. This has been a far more tactical play than I originally would have thought. That is for sure, Dave. I certainly thought this race would have split up more, but we know the damage that potentially can be caused last time at that climb, as it only comes, well, it crests with 1,500 meters to go. But Dave, this is it. You can just see the finish line now. 1 lap to go.
You know who's absolutely got to be licking his lips right now would be Thomas Thrall, last week's winner. The man is a wattage cottage, and he's had a free ride up to this point. His teammates, Matt, on Next and Short have been contesting the bonus sprints, and at this point right now, I don't know that he's had a better opportunity, as again, teams are going to try to put them under pressure. That has been the modus operandi all day long for the World Elite Zwifters and Restart team, as Daniel Jemrosic is back on the attack. This time it looks like Ryan Larson is the rider trying to cover. But credit where credit is due, Matt. Restart has really tried to animate this race. World Elite Zwifters have brought their impact hammer out here, and it looks like it's going to be Spencer Segeruch from the Canyon team trying to regulate things right now. They don't want to let this get out of hand at any point, as both Canyon and Next have got to be happy with this situation. Maybe Next a little happier than Canyon right now, and when you anticipate finishing positions for them.
Well, one more sprint to come. That's going to come in about 1,500 metres time at Jamrosik. As we've seen before, has opened up a little bit of a lead. Paul Odlin of World Elite Zwifters has just come across the gap, giving us 2 riders out in front for the very first time in this race. Every single time through the S's so far, that's 5 occasions we've seen one rider go solo, but a different feel to this final lap as Jamrosik teams up with Odlin, and they have 7 seconds. This could be interesting. This could be very, very interesting indeed. Remember, like in real life, they can swap turns on the front, rest in the slipstream of the other one, and then go flat out, giving them more of an opportunity, more of a chance, Dave, to stay out in front. And we've got this sprint coming up, the final sprint, in about 1,000 metres now.
Yeah, boy, and now you wonder, can Daniel Jamrosik get onto that wheel? He is really fighting here, as it looks like it's going to be. What's important to remember is 10 for first, 8 for second here. So both of these guys are going to benefit if they can just work together, and I think they're going to be able to make it. We'll see, as Paul Odlin is having a breakthrough ride in the ZRL out here today. The New Zealander there on World Elite Zwifters has really upped his game. Daniel Jamrosik now is able to recover after that initial effort. And these guys look to be relaying each other quite nicely. This is a nice little move, although this again is for the points, I would say, at the sprint, as everything's going to reset one more time after that line, I would guess, Matt.
You would imagine so. Let's not rule it out, but I think the effort, the toll that it takes on a rider to stay away at this sort of level is very, very difficult indeed. Difficult to come back. We've seen how quick the bunch are chasing those points behind. Although there's 7 points for 3rd place across the line, they do come up very, very quickly. This is where the road starts to drop. Shortly they'll drift to the left, and then they will go over the bridge for the final time. Then they'll take those points. Let's have a look at the camera angle there. Great shot of these riders relaying together back on to the wooden planks of this bridge. They still hold a lead, Dave, of 10 seconds, but who's going to take this one? Jamrosik goes through to the front, but to Odlin straight over the top. Or is he into the slipstream? It looks like he just passed him on the line. So it looks like Odlin has taken that one. We'll get confirmation of that in a moment, but Odlin takes maximum points there, and the bunch still around 8 seconds behind. Will the 2 in front take the chance and ride clear? Although it looks like Odlin and both Jamrosik have thought better of it, Dave. Look at their stats, they've knocked it off a little bit. Odlin takes maximum points, Jamrosik in second. Then Omdal, Emmerich, Willier, Ollie Jones there, and Van Diemen of the Netherlands riding for Movistar takes the final points, 4.1 Ks to go.
Well, Paul's not going to throw in the towel here, still sitting on about 3.5 watts per kilo, so he's going to keep grinding. Spencer Segabuch now looks like the rider that's trying to get up and join him for the Canyon team. As all right, well, I have to give this our most aggressive riders award to Paul Odlin out here today, doing a tremendous job. Now, will we see him again in the finale? Who knows? But I would say that his teammates have got to be buying him a beer at the end of the day. I guess they'd have to get down to New Zealand to do that, but that's going to be, again, all together now. Grupo Compacto here on the final lap. We're calling it just under 43K of racing out here today.
Indeed, this has gone very, very quickly indeed. A far more tactical race than I think both either me or you, Dave, predicted. Let's have a quick look at the action replay, the final replay of the night for that intermediate sprint. We know who took it. Let's have a quick look. Just, Dave, call these across the line for us.
Yeah, so these 2 ended up... not sure exactly. We're looking at the sprint there. I believe that was for 3rd, because these are the 2 riders that took the maximum bonification. It was a late sprint there from Paul Odlin. You can see he's able to get up into the draft and then come around and pick up the 10 points there in our final bonus sprint. And we'll have a chance to look at how the teams are stacking up on the table, because there's one opportunity left to collect points here. 50 for the winner, 40 for second, 35 for third. So you can see how that points table really increases, and that was the sprint for 3rd. Back in with the front group now.
Well, we're on the lower slopes of the final climb of the day. The final big, big climb. We're just approaching those slopes, should I say. They just crest this other little rise. They go over 360 bridge for the last time, and we're looking at Thrall here. Thrall out of the saddle. That real low cadence technique that we've become very, very familiar with, but he's podiumed in both the races, of course, was awarded the win last week, so knows what it's like to taste success at this level. And the stats that you talked about earlier on, Dave, that sprint that he can sustain, 16 watts a kilo for 15 seconds, is going to serve him very, very well, you'd imagine, on today's finish. But for me, is he going to use it on the climb, or is he going to use it in the sprint itself? Difficult to call, because there's a lot of riders who are going to want to get rid of the sprinters as we hit this final KOM. There is the stats for the KOM. We're just, past the red light. They're on to the climb. Only 2.2 Ks to go. Nobody just yet taking things up, Dave.
Yeah, what a conservative race it has been up to this point, but I would have to agree. Thomas Thrall, the Canadian, even Tyson Fury says that guy hits hard when he hits, and we'll see if he's going to get a crack at it. His next team has done everything they needed to do right now. Canyon, I have a feeling, is going to be rushing the finish line here, trying to get out in front of it. You can see the purple and blue jerseys of the Canyon team pretty well positioned right now. This is going to come down to a battle of wills, and we are locked and loaded now, Matt. Here we go. The gradient goes up, and Swedish Zwifters finding the front again with Kjell Oftedal there. Outstanding job by the Swedes here today.
Well, John Verm has gone through to the front as well. One of Elite Zwift is just moving through to the front. Odlin is like a Duracell bunny, isn't he? He's got attacked. This is the third big attack by the New Zealander today. Over the top, 7 watts a kilo onto this new little section of road, which essentially sews this new course together in just a few meters' time. He'll join the descent. 1.6 seconds now. 1,500 meters to go, but this is where the road mercifully starts to drop away, and as soon as he gets over 58 Ks an hour, he can have that little bit of a micro rest and then try and hold it all the way to the line. Dave, 1,200 meters, we've got one solo leader, 3 seconds the gap for Odlin.
This is it right here, right now. This is going to be a thrilling finale as they go inside of 1K. So the Flamme Rouge has passed. Paul Odlin is your leader. Here comes the Canadian Bruce Bird. Kjell Ferup there. They've got about 2.5 seconds to make up now, but they do have a big advantage back in that group. It is going to be a flat-out flying trip to the line here, Matt.
Odlin now solo. He's got half a second. He's about to be reabsorbed by the bunch here. They've taken him back. 550 meters to go. There is the Ferris wheel in the background spinning, casting light upon this amazing peloton as they're round the right-hand corner here. 400 meters to go now. It's starting to line out. Ollie Jones take things up. Jimmy Kershaw. Vujasan is there as well. Thrall at the front, though. Thrall takes the lead. 150 meters to go. Vujasan coming round him. Pinto's there as well, but Thrall is still holding on. Looks like Gild is there as well. Over the top, though, De Roos, who will take this one. An absolute blanket finish there. Well, superb stuff. I think it was Barnes in the end who came very, very late. Difficult to call that one across the line, but a blanket finish. But I think it is James Barnes of Next Esports, powered by Ensures, that takes the win yet again. Wow. Perfect timing there by the Australian.
That is huge. And actually, Next Esport, if they go 1-2, that ought to do it for them in the team battle out here today. Well, Thomas Thrall times that a little bit wrong, or did he, Matt? Because that might have been Thrall as a decoy there as his teammates end up coming through for first and second. I thought Matthias de Roos was going to collect the gold medal out here today, but he's going to end up third. Man, it's heavy hitters only in the top 10 today. We haven't seen a group sprint like that in the history of the ZRL. What a finale out here today, Matt.
It was very, very quick indeed. Great attack by Odlin over the top, but it was always going to be very, very difficult to him to maintain that lead. The effort required to ride at the same speed as the peloton was always going to be a challenge, but James Barnes, 2 from 2, and as you said, I mean, looking back, we'll get confirmation of the results very shortly, but unofficially, Dave, it looks as if Next Esports, powered by Insured, have got 4 riders in the top 10, and there it is, the men in green and blue dominating yet again. James Barnes confirmed as the winner. Second place, Brian Duffy Jr., his teammate there. Third place and rounding out the podium today, Matthias de Roos of BZR. First home for Movistar, Daniel Gould, and the first home for Canyon, the American Spencer Sigerbrook. Then we got Bart van den Eekhout of Cryo, Harvard Jednas of Callas. 2 more from Next there in the form of Nicky Hoog and Thomas Thrall, the winner last week, and then rounding out the top 10. The first home for Saris, Ryan Lawson. So flicking over to page 2.
Well, thank you, Matt and Dave. I'm literally on the edge of my seat, so I probably need to just relax. We've got a few moments now until the women's race starts. Well, that was some race, wasn't it? Effervescent indeed. Very, very tough indeed tonight. Didn't split quite as much as in previous weeks. So I think it was a very tactical battle indeed, but looking like Next Esports, powered by Insured, completely dominating the final standings as we saw 4 riders in the top 10 and a second victory in the ZRL Season 4 for James Barnes there. Hannah, that was a great win. I'm pretty sure I predicted James. I don't know whether I said it on camera, but I certainly said it between the two of us, didn't I?
You certainly did. I can vouch for that. You definitely did say when we were speaking about those who would be ones to watch tonight. So congrats, 1-0.
Thank you very much. I will take that. Now, it did seem very much like, as we mentioned, it was a very tactical race. Certainly Dave and Matt were calling that in commentary. It's opened it up, hasn't it, for a lot of the teams that we haven't been speaking about that much so far in ZRL. Swedish Swifters, BZR, Sports Solid and Restart. They were all there in the mix, weren't they, in the intermediates? I think we've got the team results now, so we can just have a look at those. And that should tell us, I guess, how much those tactics have come into play. Oh, so there we go, there's the confirmation of the finish line points. James Barnes taking that victory ahead of his teammate Brian Duffy Jr. Thomas Thrall, who hit out early, just fading to 9th there, and only one Canyon Esports rider in the top 10. I don't know whether that's going to come back to haunt them. We should see very soon indeed. Here we go then, team points. Wow, another thumping victory for Next Esports, powered by Insured there. And BZR Sports Solid, we've just mentioned them, taking 2nd place. That's a great ride for the Belgian setup. Canyon Esports in 3rd, their worst performance so far this series. I mean, not terrible when you think about it, but still their worst performance. And then Team Swedish Swifters, again, those intermediate points that we've just mentioned, putting them up into 4th, just ahead of the Movistar E-team. So it was a tactical race, wasn't it? I mean, great to see those teams like Swedish Swifters up there contesting lap after lap.
Very, very tactical. It had to be, didn't it, with the difficulty of the course, making sure that you have strength in numbers come the finish line. But also we saw through all of the intermediate sprints, it was either a sole rider who'd broken away and then they were able to just about take the maximum points, give or take 1 or 2 of those intermediates. But every lap we saw riders from various different teams trying to try the luck, try and take the maximum points at the intermediate sprints, and it was really hotly contested over the bridge, wasn't it, for those 10 points. Next Esports, powered by Insured, as we mentioned at the top of the show, hadn't been going for any of the intermediate sprints over the last 2 weeks. Tonight, a very, very different story. They were up there picking up points and not just relying on the big points at the finish line.
Indeed, yeah. Now we can head over to look at the series points as well now. I'm guessing, there we go, Next Esports on the top with a full house, 20-20-20. That's impressive. Canyon Esports dropping slightly further behind now, as you can see, still in 2nd, but 4 points adrift of Next Esports. That will take a little bit to catch back up. There's only 3 rounds remaining, remember. And then Movistar in 3rd there. So yeah, still kind of tight at the top, but we are seeing a little bit.